Yes, folks, hello, welcome once again to Monetary Games and Collectibles. It's time for another action figure review here on the channel. And as you can see on the screen in front of you right now, today's installment is going to be taking a closer look at the new G.I. Joe Classified Series Airtight figure. So stick around, I'm going to give you all the ins and outs, ups and downs that you need to know about Airtight. So if you've been thinking about picking one up for yourself, you'll have good, thorough information to make a purchase decision around. We'll kick things off by jumping back in time to visit past Chris, who's going to take a look at the packaging on the day it arrived on my doorstep. Then we'll get into Airtight himself, talk about his aesthetic and visual experience, talk about his articulation and posability, have a rundown of his accessories and decide whether they're added value, and then pop him next to a couple of other G.I. Joe Classified Series figures to make a decision as to what he looks like in the collection overall. And with all that said and done, you should have plenty of information to know whether this is a guy you want to crack your wallet or purse open for. So let's get into it and let's jump back in time to visit past Chris, having a look at the box on the day he arrived. Here we go. Alright then folks, well as you can see here is Airtight in packaging, and it's the usual G.I. Joe Classified Series single figure packaging we've seen for a while now. We've got the G.I. Joe Classified Series logo on the bottom, the Joe symbol to indicate Airtight is a G.I. Joe good guy, got the G.I. Joe and the character name Airtight in the top left corner, the carbon fibre motif in the packaging artwork, and then of course the window centre the box there showing off the figure and all the goodies. Then on the back here we can see that Airtight is 198 in the line, got the digital render of the character in an action pose, a couple of breakaway windows showing off some key features, the head sculpt and the flip down computer screeny thing on his chest, legal bollocks and malarkey across the bottom. This here is an import sticker, folks. Shout out to In Demand Toys here in the UK for getting early import stock in for us hungry G.I. Joe Classified Series collectors here. And then, of course, the file card. Let's take a closer look at these together and learn more about Airtight. And first up here, we've got the McAfee virus protection for your computer. See, Airtight's not just a virus specialist out in the field, medical viruses. He's also a specialist when it comes to computer viruses as well, and recommends McAfee, which may or may not indicate his IT talent to you. This symbol here, this is for the movie Contagion, one of Airtight's favourite films. Big fan of Jude Law. In fact, the head sculpt, you can see he styled his hair after Jude Law. This here is a massive suitcase. Airtight is a door-to-door perfume salesman, part-time on the side to raise a little bit of extra cash so he can afford to buy more copies of Contagion on DVD. And then finally, talking about part-time work, Airtight is a bit strapped for cash, so what he also does at the weekend is he does kids' parties. And this indicates here the kind of science experiment theme to his party pieces that he does. So, he explodes Mentos in Coke and stuff to make the kids go wild. Then we've got the artwork down the side. I don't know about this one. It just doesn't quite feel right, does it? These new artwork pieces, they are definitely not up to the standard they used to be up to, for sure. Like, look how short this leg is. Like, it looks so disproportionate in a weird way. And then we got all the same repeat crap on the other side with the QR code to nowhere. So there we go, folks. There's Airtight in packaging for the minting box or those interested in the peg presence of Airtight. But I'm not minting box. I'm going to crack this bad boy open, get good and hands-on, get some man-child playtime in, pose him up next to some other G.I. Joe figures, take some photographs, all that good stuff. While I'm doing that, I'll jot down a few review thoughts, so stick around because future Chris is going to come back and share those review thoughts with you in 3, 2, 1. Okay, folks, on to the review section of the video now then, and let's start by talking about the aesthetic, the visual experience of Airtight. And here's a full head-to-toe look at the figure as he came out of the packaging, and straight away, clearly very heavily inspired by the vintage A Real American Hero figure. The colour scheme, the yellow jumpsuit with the green stuff on top, the general design, so the vest there with the instruments and dials and whatnot in black in the centre. Even the glove design and the boot design, very, very similar to the vintage figure. I think there's a few little updates, like did the vintage figure have knee pads? I'm not sure that it did. The belt's been classifiedized a little bit. Always nice to see the belt loops in there. And of course, giving a little bit more depth, like in the way that they've sculpted and added a few decals in here. But overall, the core of the figure is the vintage G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, Airtight. Aside from the fact that the vintage figure had the helmet on, and here we've got a helmetless version of the character, and the head sculpt there is clearly heavily inspired by the Sunbow look, the Sunbow cartoon look of the character when he went helmetless in the cartoons. I don't think he went without his helmet in the comic books a great deal, certainly not in Action Force. One of the reasons I'm particularly excited to see Airtight enter the line is that Airtight was a member of the Marvel UK Action Force team, but I only ever remember him having his helmet on during that. But we'll get the helmet out when we talk about the accessories in a little bit. The head sculpt's nice, up to the usual G.I. Joe Classified Series standard. Obviously, unique features, so that you know it's Airtight, is a unique character in the line. Good chin, cheeks, nose, sculpting, the furrowed brow, very serious looking dude here. Good paint applications on the eyes and the eyebrows. Got the receding hairline, just like he had in the cartoon there, with textured, sculpted hair. Mine's got a little bit of a mold line on the top of this ear look there, but otherwise, all very good. Nice little unique head sculpt indeed. And coming down into the body, you can see he's got the zip line, and the zip line goes on the neck piece and on the torso piece, so it's got it continues through. Although aesthetically, you have to be careful when you're sort of turning it, because obviously you create a break in that zip line there. And then you've got his tactical vest, nice sculpted textures in on the green sections underneath, with some like stretchy black strap sections at the top, and then the sculpted detail in all his kind of instruments and controls here. As I mentioned before, a couple of little decals to put a splash of colour in there, like buttons and stuff. And then we've got the flip down monitor that we've seen before, with a decal on it as well. A little like readout of, I don't know, chemical stuff in the air. Also got this ribbed piping going around the back there that attaches into what looks like a little kind of oxygen canister on the back. And you could also see on the back more of that kind of sculpted texture detail across the top of the straps and across the back here. Got the belt, painted belt buckle. Always a fan of a painted belt buckle, and the belt loops, as I mentioned before. Always a fan of painted belt loops too, over the top of the belt, which has also got texture detail in it, which matches this kind of ribbed look in the top of the gloves here. Lots of nice texture detail in the uniform too, you know, creases, folds, bunching up bits, like, you know, where the gloves are here and at the bottom of the legs, all the way down in the trousers, the zipper at the front, couple of pockets and stuff. Always great to see that, giving it depth, giving it a bit of texture. Matching elbow and knee pads as well, with like the little studs, and one nice little touch on the knee pads. Let me get those a little bit closer and in focus. As you can see, these little dents and scratches on the knee pads there, where he's obviously been kneeling down and, I don't know, testing barrels of chemicals or something. I was going to make a really bad joke there about Airtight spending a lot of time on his knees, which I now have done. Eye holster for his pistol, that's sculpted. Got a little bit of a plasticky look. The green doesn't quite match up with the other greens, but that's fine. But yeah, sculpted detail there on the holster too. One thing I've noticed aesthetically on the knees is when you bring his legs up like that, you can see that this green ribbed, this green painted section, the straps around the knee pad break, and you've got the yellow pieces underneath, which is a little bit of a shame. Boots are fine, sculpted detail in on these. I'm pretty sure we've seen these before somewhere actually. But yeah, look very practical for the type of work Airtight does. Don't know if you can see it there as well, folks, but I've got a little bit of paint spill at the top of the glove line there on the right arm. Negligible really, but I point these things out, I suppose, to fill time in a review. So, as far as aesthetics, as far as visual experience goes, your mileage will vary depending on what you're looking for. If you're after, a 6-inch classified recreation of the vintage figure, then yes, they've got you covered. If you're looking for a comic book accurate figure, in my case, the Marvel UK Action Force team, then yeah, they've got you covered. But he's not really been reinterpreted in any way. There's nothing new or different here. It is just a straight up 6-inch version of the classic look on the figure, which is fine. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. They have updated him a bit. Like I say, I'm not sure he had the elbow pads and the knee pads originally, but they put a bit more depth in around the instruments here on his chest plate, but that's about it. So your mileage is going to vary. I'm going to give him a thumbs up because I was looking for a comic book accurate Marvel UK Action Force member of the team. But yeah, you may look at that and go, well, they've not really done anything new, not really done anything interesting or exciting there. And that would be okay too, So there you go. There's your visual experience. Thumbs up from me. Not bad at all. Let's now take a look at his articulation and posability, shall we? And to kick off this section, folks, as I always say, it's standard G.I. Joe Classified Series articulation with Airtight here. So if you've got a little interest in knowing more about the articulation, you've had it in hand, you're familiar with it, then I'll put timestamps in below, jump forward to the next chapter, take a look at my section, looking at the accessories and added value. However, if this is the first G.I. Joe Classified Series review you've ever watched, or you're interested to know if there's any particular minor quirks or whatever, stick around, I'll talk you through it, and I'll get started up top with the head. So Airtight has a ball at the base of the skull, ball at the base of the neck, so you're forward down to there, got your back up to here, can go all the way around, full 360, and then you can move it around on top of the ball joint in the skull there. That's obviously without the helmet. I'll talk about with the helmet in a few moments' time. Then coming down into the shoulders, it's the butterfly joint, the peg, and the hinge. So you've got some shuffle back and forward like so, all the way around, full 360, and a T-shape out to there. Swivel at the top of the bicep and tricep, pinless double elbow up to there, and then pegged in hands that can move at the wrist, and then your right hand's got an up and down hinge, and your left hand's got a forward and back hinge. Coming into the torso, got the hinge across the middle and the ball joint at the waist. You can get some crunch out the hinge in the middle, despite the vest on the top, so you can come forward and come back like so, because of that slightly higher cut across it there. And then you've got the swivel and wobble and move and all that in the ball joint at the waist. Coming down into the groin and the hips, got the drop down joint there in the hips, and then you can come forward to here. And then, wow, look, Russian ballet splits for days on Airtight. Look at that. Then you've got swivel at the top of the thigh, pinless double knee, that'll get you up to there. Ankle cut at the top of the boot, and then a hinge and rocker on the feet. So yeah, thumbs up. Articulates fine, no problem at all, up to the usual G.I. Joe Classified Series standard. There is one small problem I'll come across, but I'll talk about that when I get to the accessories in a minute, because I can't quite figure it out. But overall, as you can see, everything's A-OK on that front, so a thumbs up. So there we go. There's the articulation and posability. Let's now take a look at those accessories and added value, shall we? And of course, we're going to start this section with the signature helmet, a key part of the visual identity of Airtight. As I said before, the vintage figure, just came with this helmet. I don't remember him taking the helmet off in the UK versions of the comic books I used to read. I don't think he took it off a great deal in the mainline comic. He did take it off a lot in the cartoon, though, if memory serves me right. But obviously a signature part of the look, and this is a decent helmet. It's fine. Got the green colour that matches the green embellishments on his uniform. Got his little grated breather at the front. Clear visor in there. Got some sculpted details and some contours and shapes in the helmet too, which is all fine. And it obviously very much completes the look. But it's not a very snug fit. It's quite loose look. Very loosey-goosey. So I mentioned before about you still got the full range of movement with the head. You can see how you have to sort of line up his eyes to be sitting correct in the visor. If you are moving them around, it all kind of weebly wobbles quite loosely about. And there's another challenge with the articulation with the head with the helmet on when we get to the backpack, which, we might as well do now. So here's the backpack. Yes, again, a pretty straight up recreation of the backpack that Airtight had in the vintage figure, with the these little air spinny purifier things, some sculpted details at the bottom. The broad kind of shape and design remains the same. It's decent enough backpack, pegs into the back like standard. That's all good and dandy. We do have some extra kind of elements here, though. We've got the a hose port at the bottom here, 2 hose ports at the top on either side, and then like this clip section in the middle. And so let's get started with the hose ports at the top. Now, those hose ports are for these, a couple of little short sculpted hoses with pegs at either end and in that classic kind of hose ribbed shape and design to plug into the backpack and then plug into the helmet. I didn't point the helmet port out before, but there it is at the base of the helmet. And then you've got the port here at the back. And then you plug it in like so. So you've got the kind of short fat plug, which I think is the one for the backpack, and then the shorter, thinner plug, which I think is the one for the back of the helmet. And it is a bit tricky, a bit of a faff and a fiddle to get it in, but they do fit fine. There we go. So there's both of them ported in. And so the problem with these is that they're a bit too rigid. And so they restrict the movement of the head while it's all plugged in. They don't move nicely with the movement of the head. So if you want him sort of looking off to the side, as I've just done there, you can see they pop out the port, and then you can sort of stretch it out. Oh, bloody hell, see, just watch Chris struggle. You can kind of stretch it out a bit, but it's not long enough, you see, to just do a simple side look. It pops out the base there. So once you've got these in, you're kind of a little bit restricted in terms of just having him doing a sort of forward look, which is a pain. So what I've been doing when I've been taking pictures with him is I've been popping it loose out of the backpack and sort of disguising the fact that it's not been plugged in the backpack and sort of taking the picture so you can't tell that it's not plugged into the backpack, if you know what I mean. So it's going around the back and it looks like it is, but it's not. But yeah, they're a little bit too short and they haven't quite got enough flexibility in them to suit the purpose. And then when you've got a loose helmet, they also kind of, it's just it's all not adding up very well. You have to be very kind of precise and finicky when you're going to take a photo, basically, which is what I was trying to do. I was going to take a picture and then sort of noticing that it was sort of misaligned and his eyes weren't quite lined up properly in the visor and stuff, or this one had popped out, and so I took the picture with it hanging loose there like that and stuff. I found it a little bit annoying, if I'm being honest. And we have this contraption, which I don't think is a gun. I honestly don't know what this is, but I heard someone once call it a sniffer, and I've always kind of then imagined that it was to, I don't know, vacuum up nasty chemical dangerous things in the air, or illegal gas weapons or something. That's that's what I've always like with this front bit. It looks like the Hoover out of Louise's mansion. You know what I mean? Mario, Mario. So yeah, I think that's what it is. I know some of you guys will be screaming at the screen right now, and you're welcome to jump into the comments and educate me. But yeah, that's, as I understand it, got like a little detectory thing for detecting stuff that works with his gear, and then like a little hoovery bit to hoover stuff up and churn it back out clean. There's a single piece of molded plastic, got, molded sculpted details in there. It is a bit wibbly wobbly. Can you see mine's got like a funny little goes up then down then up again, and this front bit's very wibbly wobbly on the front there, but it's all fine. Got this kind of curved in section here to sort of fit around the gubbins at the front, and then you can see you've got this little port at the back for the hose that comes with it, and this is the standard hose we've seen a bazillion times in G.I. Joe Classified that you can then plug in the back of the Hoover there, and then plug into the little hole at the base of the backpack that I showed you before. And I'll tell you something else about this as well, right? Airtight's got short arms. I mean, he hasn't. They're proportional to his book and everything. You wouldn't believe how many classified figures I've had out, like checking shoulder-to-shoulder arm lengths against Airtight. He's proportional to his book. He doesn't, he's not short-armed disproportionately or anything. But he's a little bit too short-armed to really do anything interesting with this thing. It might be me, I'm impatient, I'm sausage-fingered myself. I'm clumsy. So, but I've been finding it very difficult to do anything interesting with the way he holds this. You've just kind of got like that across the front of him, and then you're sort of done. That's it. And I was trying to do some things like getting him, like holding it down, sniffing on the ground, and it just doesn't come together very well. I don't know. It's probably me being just like really idiotic with the figure, but I feel like his arms are just slightly too short. They need to be just a wee touch longer to do more with it there. Or this needs to be a little bit longer, so this front handle's a bit further out. But it's not disproportionate. It's just like a weird thing that's just been stressing me out. I don't know. And then last up in the Airtight loadout selection, we've got this little pistol here that he carries. It's a bit of a chunkier one. Would this be a 45 firearms knowledge, people? But it's got the peg hole for effect, single piece of molded plastic, big old chunky pistol that goes in that thigh holster there. So if any cobras get too close, you can take care of business, and just pop that in there as standard. So it's a bit of a funny one, this one, because lots of pluses. It's definitely, again, if you're looking for the vintage inspiration, he's got old gear, the classified version of the vintage gear. He's carrying stuff that he used in the comic books and the cartoons, although he did have a kind of rifle-y thing at one point, I seem to remember. It's all stored on the figure, it's all there. Added to the figure to bring it to life. That's all good, so I'm kind of leaning up towards the thumbs up. But the wibbly wobbly helmet, the weird thing going on with the hoses at the back and the way they attach into the backpack, which might be solved if I give it a good blast of heat and play around with it. And I think this just needs to be a wee touch longer, because I found this sniffer Hoover thing a bit boring to do anything with when I've been displaying and photographing him. Which I know is a very personal thing, but that means I'm dropping my accessories down to about 10-30. Coming down. It's not a full, assured, confident thumbs up. It's good. It's the stuff that should come with him. It's all stored on the figure, but it's getting a few points knocked off because I've found it a bit fiddly and a bit limiting, really. This whole helmet and hose thing is quite limiting when you try and pose him up for a cool photo that you've been trying to do. So while I said before the articulation is good, my imagination wasn't limited by the articulation, it has been a little bit limited by this stuff going on up here. So there you go. Okay, so there's the accessories and added value. Right, let's now take a look at Airtight next to a couple of other classified figures, shall we? And of course, I'm going to have to start this section off by recreating that iconic Action Force cover there. There we go. Lovely jubbly. Very pleased to be able to do that with my classifieds now. I'm actually kind of curious to know, just as a random total tangent while I got these two out. When I take photos of my figures and post them on Instagram, I quite often recreate classic Marvel UK Action Force covers in my pictures. Has anybody noticed? Can you tell me which ones were? I'd be interested. And of course, if my Airtight's going to be a member of the Action Force International Heroes, then I'm going to have to pose him out here with Retro Flint. Here's Airtight with the black faceplate Crimson Guard because of that one episode of the cartoon, which the name escapes me now. Was it called Germ or the Germs? Something like that. Where he tells the Crimson Guard, you better let me pilot this or we're both going to die. And the Crimson Guard goes, all right then. Here he is with my man Lifeline, who's going to, come in behind Airtight and treat your chemical burns or whatever that Airtight has saved you from. He's also kind of brightly coloured. My eye's been drawn to other, crazy coloured jumpsuits in the G.I. Joe side of the shelf. I'm going to finish up with sci-fi here. Again, I think it was just the colours, really, that, when I was digging out Joes to put with him, that just drew me to it, brightly coloured Joes, just to really mix it up, the kind of wackier specialisms on the team. But I'm pretty sure the two of them were in, another Sunbow episode too, although I could be misremembering that. And here we are then, folks. Here's Airtight going around on the turntables, so you can get a nice 360 view of the figure. And while you're eyeballing that, I'll offer up some final thoughts. And this is an odd one because I was really looking forward to Airtight. As I said before, one of the things I'm trying to do in my G.I. Joe Classifieds is to fill out my Marvel UK Action Force characters, and Airtight was a featured character in a number of the uniquely written stories that were in that title. I like the look of the character. I'm not too bothered about the fact that it's quite heavily inspired by the vintage look of the figure. It's pretty comic book accurate for me, so that works for what I wanted to do with the figure. But I've got to admit, I found him a bit boring. I don't know, he's just not a very dynamic character, I suppose, going around, detecting dangerous chemicals with his sniffy, hoovery thing. And the fact that I can't seem to do a lot with that sniffy, hoovery thing, and the helmet and all that stuff I was saying about the articulation, just made me sort of shy away from playing with him as much as I've played with some of the others. Now, I fully accept that could just be the limits of my imagination, the limits of my capability, and my level of patience with, fine-tuning a pose to get something the way I want it to. And I fully accept that. And so you perhaps might not want to take quite as much of that on board when it comes to considering whether this is a purchase for you. Because in display, great that we've got some more splashes of colour on the Joe side of the shelf. Obviously, I love the stuff that's out there and in your face as well, so it appeals to me on that front. He is a rock solid, main named character who appeared in the cartoon, appeared in the comic books frequently, so all told, I am going to recommend him, but just with that little side note of, I found this one a difficult one. Airtight, I found him difficult to pose up and do things with, which I thought was interesting. So there you go. Okay then, folks. Well, I'll wrap that up there then. Thanks for watching. I hope you found it useful. If you did, do all the YouTube stuff, press all the buttons and things that helps a brother out. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great week. And please do come back and watch another video around these parts again sometime soon, because it'd be my absolute pleasure to have you. So there we are then. I'm all done. See you later, folks.